a story about self-control, patience, and quiet strength. In the heart of Lahore, nestled between bustling roads and chai dabas, lived a young man named Ayan. He wasn't loud, aggressive, or particularly noticeable in a crowd yet. There was something magnetic about his calm presence. Unlike most people his age, Ayan didn't react to every situation with emotion or words. Instead, he observed. This behavior wasn't out of weakness or shyness. It was deliberate, a trait deeply rooted in the one lesson his Army father had engraved into him, beta. Never let emotions drive your response. Control is power. From an early age, Ayan practiced silence. When classmates mocked him, when teachers unfairly blamed him, when his friends fought with him over misunderstandings, Ayan chose not to react. And because he didn't react, he never escalated problems. In high school, he often became the target of bullies. One of them, Shabazz, frequently tried to provoke him. "Hey, mute boy," he would shout. Once, he knocked over Ayan's books in front of the whole class, expecting drama. But Ayan merely picked up his books and walked away. A few days later, Shabazz was suspended after CCTV footage exposed his behavior. Ayan never said a word to the teacher, nor did he seek revenge. His silence spoke for him. University life introduced Ayan to a more complex world full of emotions, politics, pressure, and relationships. He studied psychology, understanding the deeper mechanisms behind human behavior. His roommate, Bilal, was his complete opposite: loud, impulsive, and quick-tempered. "Why don't you argue back?" Bilal once asked. Ayan smiled, because most arguments are won by silence, not by shouting. One night, Bilal accused him of using his laptop without permission and exploded in rage. Ayan left the room silently and spent the night in the study hall. The next day, Bilal discovered it was his younger cousin who had used the laptop. He apologized, embarrassed. Ayan didn't mention the incident again. His silence wasn't passive, it was purposeful. After graduation, Ayan interviewed for a job at a corporate firm. The HR manager, Ms. Sano, was sharp and intentionally intimidating. "Your CV isn't very impressive. Why should we hire you?" she challenged. Ayan looked her in the eye and replied calmly, "Because I bring peace to pressure. I don't panic under stress." Later that day, when two candidates got angry at the long wait time and stormed out, Ayan remained seated, quietly reading a book. He was hired the next morning. His strength wasn't just in his words. It was in how little he let the world disturb his inner balance. At work, Ayan soon became known for his emotional intelligence. He stayed out of gossip, didn't react to office politics, and stayed focused. His colleague Imran, threatened by Ayan's growing popularity, tried to discredit him in meetings, while others would defend themselves or respond emotionally. Ayan simply listened, took notes, and continued with his work. His consistent behavior didn't go unnoticed. When a major client project came in, their manager declared, "Ayan will lead this. We need someone composed and reliable." Imran's face turned red, but Ayan never gloated. He simply accepted the responsibility with quiet confidence. Meanwhile, Ion fell in love with Hera, a lively and expressive woman. She adored his calm nature at first, calling him her safe space. But with time, his lack of emotional reaction began to confuse her. "You never fight for me," she said one day. "It feels like you don't care," Ion gently explained. "I do care. That's why I don't fight, I trust." But Hera, driven by the idea that love had to be dramatic, eventually left him for someone more passionate. Ion didn't chase her, didn't cry in front of her, didn't beg. He simply let her go. Months later, Hera returned, disillusioned by the chaos she had mistaken for love. "You were my peace," she whispered. Ion smiled and replied, "Peace is often boring to those who haven't lived in noise." They didn't get back together, but Hera carried that sentence with her forever. Years passed, and Ion rose through the ranks at his company. When a major data crisis hit, the office turned into panic. Employees argued, managers yelled, departments blamed each other. But Ion stayed still. He gathered his team, assigned roles, and restored order. That day, the CEO personally thanked him and promoted him to director. "How do you stay so calm?" he asked. Ion replied, "Because reacting never fixes chaos, responding does." One day, Ion noticed a new intern named Aliena, who was quietly wiping her tears after being humiliated by a senior. Instead of breaking down or retaliating, she simply walked away. Ion called her into his office and said, "You remind me of myself." When she asked, "But isn't it weakness not to respond?" he shook his head. "No, it's strength. The world is loud. It needs more people who respond, not react." She later became one of the most successful project managers under his mentorship. But life doesn't spare anyone, not even the most balanced. Ion's greatest test came when his father passed away suddenly. Amidst loud mourning and emotional breakdowns, Ion sat silently beside the grave. A relative asked, "Why are you so quiet?" Ion replied, "Because grief is personal, and real pain doesn't need an audience." That night, he stood alone in the courtyard, whispering to the stars, "You taught me silence, Abba. Today, I use it to honor you." As years went by, Ion's reputation extended beyond his career. He was invited to speak at seminars, wrote blogs on emotional discipline, and even published a book titled "Stillness in a Shouting World." People admired his ability to remain grounded no matter what storms rage around him. But Ion never claimed superiority. "I'm not immune to emotion," he often said. "I just learned not to be controlled by it." He proved, through every phase of life, that power isn't always in speaking, shouting, or reacting. Real power is in choosing not to react and to remain still when others tremble, to stay quiet when provoked, and to respond only when response adds value. In a world obsessed with instant replies, clapbacks, and emotional fireworks, Ion stood out not by his words, but by his restraint. And perhaps that's what made him truly powerful. Moral of the story: reacting is easy. Anyone can shout, argue, or fight. But true strength lies in not reacting, in staying calm, composed, and in control. When you learn to master your response, you master your life.